They have lied to you for 2,000 years. What you read in the Bible today is only part of the truth. The rest was buried in the sands of Egypt, hidden in the caves of Qumran, and burned in the ancient city of Constantinople, today's Istanbul. Why? Because these texts speak of the end of the world differently. They give other dates, other prophets, other signs. And most terrifying of all, they point to events happening right now. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is fact. In the year 1945, an Egyptian farmer near the town of Nag Hammadi found a clay jar. Inside were 13 codices manuscripts written in the Coptic language. They contained gospels that were never part of the official canon. The Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Truth, and most frightening of all, the Apocalypse of Peter. These texts do not simply speak of Christ. They reveal what will happen when the end comes, and their descriptions do not match what you were taught on Sunday mornings. That is why the church banned them. That is why they were hidden. That is why they were burned, but they survived. And today we will uncover what is written within them. If you want to know the truth, hit the like button right now. Subscribe to the channel, because what you are about to hear may change everything you ever believed. Let us begin with a question. Why was the church afraid of these texts? What was so dangerous about them that they had to be destroyed? The answer is simple. They foretold the end in a different way. In the canonical revelation of John, there are clear symbols: 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 4 horsemen. But in the Apocrypha, the symbols are different. There is no Babylon as a metaphor. There are specific kingdoms. There are specific rulers. And most terrifying, there are specific dates. Take the Apocalypse of Peter. This text was discovered in Egypt in the year 1918. It describes the end of the world like this. First will come a false prophet who calls himself the Messiah. Then a war will break out between the south and the north. Then the sky will roar, and signs will fall from above. Now, look at the world today. Russia is at war with Ukraine, the north, against the south. Iran threatens Israel, the east, against the west. China prepares for conflict with America. All of these wars are not accidents. They are the fulfillment of prophecies the church tried to conceal. In the 2nd century after Christ, early Christians read these texts alongside the canonical Gospels. They believed the end would come in their own lifetime. But then came Constantine. He gathered the Council of Nicaea in the year 325, and there it was decided which books to keep and which to burn. Why? Because the Apocrypha spoke of power in a different way. They declared that kings were servants of the devil, that empires were the beast with 7 heads, that the end would not come from God, but from the hands of men who served the darkness. Constantine did not like this. He needed a religion that would support his empire, not undermine it. So he ordered the destruction of everything that opposed his rule. Hundreds of texts were burned. Thousands of monks who refused to surrender them were executed. Yet some texts survived. They were hidden in caves, buried in deserts, copied in secret within monasteries. And now, 2,000 years later, they are once again in our hands. One of the most scandalous of these is the Gospel of Judas. It was discovered in the year 1978, and it tells the story of betrayal differently. Here Judas is not a traitor. He is the one who fulfills the will of Christ. Christ asks him to betray because only through death can resurrection come. The church called it heresy. But think about it. If Judas acted on Christ's command, then he is not a sinner, he is a hero. And if he is a hero, then the entire story of good and evil changes. This is dangerous for power, because power relies on clear boundaries. Who is right? Who is wrong? Who is holy? Who is sinful? But the Apocrypha erase those boundaries. They say the truth is more complicated, and that makes them dangerous. Now, look at our world today. We live in a time where boundaries are again being erased. Who is right in war? Who is lying in the news? Who truly defends God and who uses his name for power? The Apocrypha give the answer. None of the rulers serve God. All empires are temporary constructions, and they will collapse when the end arrives. And that end has already begun. Think about it. Every empire in history believed itself eternal. Rome thought it would rule forever. Britain believed in its immortality. The Soviet Union planned communism for centuries, but they all fell. Why? Because they were built on lies, on power over others, on the blood of the innocent. The Apocrypha foretold this. They said any power not from God will fall, and it always collapses at the very moment it believes itself strongest. Today, America is the most powerful nation on earth. But is it eternal? China is rising in economic power. But will it withstand the weight of its own secrets? Russia wages wars. But will it survive them? The Apocrypha answer, no. None of them will endure, because they are not separate nations. They are the many heads of a single beast, and when the time comes, the beast will be defeated. There is one book that the Eastern Orthodox Church never included in the canon, yet the Ethiopian Orthodox Church still regards as sacred. It is the Book of Enoch, and it tells a story that changes everything you thought you knew about the origin of evil. Centuries before the flood, 200 angels descended to earth. They saw the daughters of men and desired them. These angels were called the Watchers. Their leader was Azazel. They took women, and they taught humanity forbidden knowledge, magic, war, cosmetics, and astrology. Giants were born Nephilim, and the world fell into chaos. God punished the Watchers. They were locked in the abyss until the day of judgment. But their children, the Nephilim, continued to live, and they became the reason for the flood. God washed the earth clean to destroy their seed. The church does not like this story. Why? Because it declares evil did not come from humans. Evil came from angels. And if angels can sin, then where is the boundary between good and evil? But the book of Enoch goes even further. It contains prophecies of the end of the world. Enoch sees the future. 70 generations after the flood will come the final judgment. The Nephilim will return in another form. They will rule through money, through technology, through power, and then God will intervene again. Now let us count. If one generation is 40 years, then 70 generations is 2,800 years. The flood was around the year 2004 before Christ. Add 2,800, and you arrive at the year 804 after Christ. But Enoch speaks of the last generation. That is us. Do you believe it? Does it seem to you that the world today is ruled by something dark? The book of Enoch also describes the signs of the end. The first sign, the sun and the moon will change their course. The second sign, the seas will overflow their boundaries. The third sign, people will begin to worship machines. Look around you. Climate change, tsunamis, rising oceans, artificial intelligence, trusted more than God. All of this was written in the book of Enoch 2,000 years ago. But the most frightening part is this. Enoch says the Nephilim will return before the end, not in the flesh, but in spirit. They will rule the world through their descendants, through bloodlines, through dynasties. There is a theory that some ruling families still carry the blood of the Nephilim, that they maintain power because of it, that they know more about the Apocrypha than the church itself, and that they are preparing the world for the arrival of their true master. The church calls this madness. But then why did it ban the book of Enoch? Why was it burned? What was so terrifying inside its pages? The answer is simple. It reveals the true nature of power. It declares those who rule you are not from God. They are from the Watchers. And their time is ending. The modern parallel is clear. Look at the Davos Forum, at the Bilderberg Group, at the secret gatherings of billionaires who decide the fate of the planet. They are not chosen by the people. They are not accountable to God. They simply hold power. The book of Enoch declares, they are the descendants of those who fell, and their kingdom will fall with them. One of the most terrifying passages of the book of Fontes. Enoch describes the place where the Watchers are imprisoned. It is not hell. It is a bottomless pit beneath the mountains. There the darkness is so thick that it burns. There the angels are bound in chains, awaiting the final judgment. Enoch asks God, why are they there? And God replies, because they taught mankind what mankind was never meant to know. War, weapons, deception, corruption. And now they wait for punishment. But here is what is most terrifying. The book says, before the end, they will be released. Not all of them, but some. They will return to earth in the last days, and they will lead armies. Have you heard of demons? Of possession? The book of Enoch says, these are the spirits of the dead Nephilim. When the giants were drowned in the flood, their souls went neither to heaven nor to hell. They remained on earth, and now they search for bodies to enter. Modern psychiatry calls it schizophrenia. The church calls it possession. But the book of Enoch says they are Nephilim. They are still here, and they are multiplying. Think about what you see every day. People acting against their own interests, destroying themselves and others, speaking words they never meant to speak. Is this just weakness or something more? The book of Enoch declares, many people are no longer in control of themselves. They are controlled, and before the end, their numbers will grow. There is one more terrifying detail. Enoch describes how the Watchers taught humanity metallurgy, how to forge swords, how to make weapons. Why is this important? Because without metal, people could not kill on a massive scale. They would have lived in harmony with nature, but the Watchers gave them technology. And from that moment, wars began. Conquest began. Slavery began. All the evil we see today began with one decision, to give mankind a power it did not deserve. Now look at the modern world. Nuclear weapons, biological weapons, artificial intelligence that can kill without a human hand, Does it not seem that someone is once again giving us technologies we are not ready for? The book of Enoch warns, when humanity takes on the power of the gods, it will destroy itself. And we stand on the edge of that right now. In the year 1945, near the town of Nag Hammadi, a text was discovered that the church had tried to erase for 1,500 years. It was the Gospel of Thomas' 114 sayings of Jesus, not found in the canonical Gospels. Why were they hidden? Because they changed the very essence of Christianity. In the Gospel of Thomas, Christ does not speak about the church. He speaks about knowledge. He says the kingdom of God is within you. You do not need priests. You do not need temples. You need only the truth. The church did not like this. Because if the kingdom is inside you, then why do you need the church? If the truth is in everyone, why do you need a priest? That is why the Gospel of Thomas was branded heresy. It was banned at the Council of Nicaea. It was burned, but it survived. One of the most terrifying sayings goes like this. Jesus said, "If you bring forth what is within you, it will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, it will destroy you." What does that mean? That inside every person there is something dark, and if you deny it, it will destroy you. But if you acknowledge it and control it, it becomes your strength. The church teaches otherwise. It says evil must be suppressed. Sin must be hidden. Confession is required for forgiveness. But in the Gospel of Thomas, Christ says the opposite. Know yourself, and then you will know God. This is terrifying. Because if every person can know God without the church, then the church loses its power. And power is what the church exists for. Another saying declares, Jesus said, "You will search for me, and you will not find me, for you did not enter the place where I am. And I will not go to the place where you are." It is a riddle. Where is Christ? He says, in the place you are afraid to go. In the depths of yourself? In the darkness. In the truth you hide from others and from yourself. The church says, Christ is in heaven. He is in the temple. He is in prayer. But the Gospel of Thomas says he is where you refuse to look. In your fears, in your sins, in your darkness. Are you ready to go there? If you are, leave a comment. Tell us what you feel when you hear these words. Do they change your understanding of faith? Now let us look at the present. Today the church is losing its influence. People are leaving the temples. They no longer trust the priests. Why? Because deep down they feel they have been lied to. The Gospel of Thomas reveals the church concealed, that God is not in a building. He is within you. That salvation is not in ritual. It is in knowledge. That the end of the world is not outside. It is within each person who refuses to see the truth. One prophecy in the Gospel of Thomas says, Jesus said, "The days will come when you will say, 'Blessed is the womb that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed.'" These are words about the end, a time when bringing children into the world will be seen as a curse, because the world will be so terrifying that it is better not to bring new life into it. Look at the statistics. Birth rates are collapsing across the developed world. People refuse to have children. Why? Because they sense the world is dying. They do not speak it aloud, but they know it. The Gospel of Thomas foretold this 2,000 years ago. Another saying Jesus said, "Become passers-by." What does that mean? Do not cling to the world, for it is temporary. Do not love money, power, or fame, for all of it will burn away. The modern world preaches the opposite. It says accumulate, consume, own, but Christ says let go, for nothing will remain. The church does not preach this. Why? Because it itself owns billions of dollars, vast lands, gold. If it truly preached the gospel of Thomas, it would have to give everything away. That is why it was banned. There is yet another saying the church especially hated. Jesus said, "Split a piece of wood, and I am there. Lift a stone, and you will find me there." What does this mean? That God is everywhere, not only in the temple, not only in prayer, but in nature, in the stone, in the tree, in everything. The church calls this pantheism. It calls it paganism. But is it really? Is the God who created everything not present in all things? The church says no. God is only in holy places, only where the priest is. But Christ in the Gospel of Thomas says otherwise. He is everywhere, and if you want to find him, do not go to the temple. Go into the forest, lift up stones, look at the world, and you will see him. This is a revolutionary idea. It shatters the monopoly of the church on God, and that is why it was hidden. Today people are rediscovering this truth. They find God in nature, in art, in love. The church calls them heretics, but they are simply reading what Christ actually said. There is a text that describes the end of the world in such terrifying detail that the church could never leave it in the canon. It is the Apocalypse of Peter, written in the 2nd century. It does not only show hell after death, it reveals the hell that will come upon the earth. Peter asks Christ, "What will happen before the end?" And Christ answers, "There will come a time when people will eat their own children, when mothers will kill their sons, when brother will raise his sword against brother." The church says, this is a metaphor, but the Apocalypse of Peter speaks directly. It will be famine. It will be war. It will be the collapse of every bond. Look at the world. Syria, Yemen, Ukraine, wars that drag on for years, hunger that kills millions, families divided by politics. This is not a metaphor. This is happening already. The Apocalypse of Peter also describes the punishment of sinners, but not after death on earth. It says those who killed will be killed in the same way. Those who lied will be torn apart by lies. Those who stole will be robbed of everything. This is justice, but not divine justice, human justice. War always returns to those who start it. Lies always destroy the liar. Sin always punishes itself. Christ says to Peter, "You will see this before the end." And Peter beholds a vision. He sees cities burning. He sees the sky turning black. He sees the seas boiling. And he hears the cries of millions of souls begging for deliverance. The church did not include this text in the Bible. Why? Because it is too frightening. It does not offer hope. It does not say, "Pray, and everything will be fine." It says, "If you do not change the world will destroy you." But here's what is striking. The Apocalypse of Peter does not end in catastrophe. After the hell on earth, Christ returns. He judges the living and the dead. And then a new kingdom begins. This is the key. The end of the world is not the end. It is a transition. The old world must burn so that the new one can rise, and those who survive the fire will see God. The modern parallel is obvious once again. The world stands on the edge. Climate catastrophe, nuclear threat, economic collapse. All of it could happen at any moment. But if it does, what comes next? The Apocalypse of Peter says, what comes next is a rebirth. Not all will survive, but those who do will build another world. A world without lies, without war, without sin. Do you believe this? Does it seem to you that the end could be the beginning? One of the most terrifying passages in the Apocalypse of Peter describes the punishment of false prophets. It says they will be hung by their tongues over fire, because their words burned the souls of men. Who are the false prophets today? Not only religious leaders, but politicians who promise peace and bring war, journalists who twist the truth, influencers who sell lies for money. The Apocalypse of Peter says they will be punished first, not after death on earth. Their lies will turn against them. Their own words will become their hell. We already see it. Politicians exposed in corruption, journalists who lose the public's trust, leaders who fall from their pedestals. This is not coincidence. This is prophecy fulfilled. Do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe if these words resonate with your soul. There is another passage the church especially hated. Peter sees the punishment of the rich. They stand knee-deep in gold, but cannot touch it. They starve though food surrounds them. Why? Because in life they hoarded and did not share. This is a direct attack on wealth. The Apocalypse of Peter says, money is a curse. If you possess more than you need, you will be punished. Not by God, but by money itself. The church could not accept this, because the church itself is rich. It owns lands, gold, art. If it preached the Apocalypse of Peter, it would have to give everything away. That is why it was banned. Today, we live in a world where inequality has reached its peak. Billionaires own more wealth than half the planet combined. People die of hunger while others fly into space for amusement. The Apocalypse of Peter foretold this, and it says, it will not last forever. The moment will come when the wealthy lose everything, not because God strikes them down, but because a world built on inequality cannot stand. It will collapse on its own, and then the true judgment will begin. We return to the book of Enoch, because within it are chapters we have not yet spoken of, chapters that describe the last days in such detail that the church could never allow ordinary people to read them. Enoch sees a vision. He sees the final generation of humankind. He says they will live in wealth, but their souls will be empty. They will know everything, but understand nothing. They will be connected through technology, yet lonely in their hearts. Is this not about us? Look around. We have smartphones, the internet, access to all the knowledge of the world. But we are not happier. We are more anxious, more depressed, more isolated from one another. The book of Enoch foretold this 3,000 years ago. Enoch also describes signs in the heavens. He says, before the end, stars will leave their courses. The sun will grow dark in the day. The moon will give no light at night. And people will see in the skies things they have never seen before. What does this mean? Some say this speaks of asteroids, comets, cosmic events we do not yet understand. Others say it speaks of UFOs, of beings from beyond, of the truth that before the end, humanity will discover we are not alone in the universe. The church remains silent about this, because if other civilizations exist, how does that fit with the Bible? Did God create them too? Did Christ die for them as well? The book of Enoch gives an answer. It says, other beings have always existed. They are the descendants of the Watchers, beings that belong neither to earth nor to heaven. And before the end they will return. Are you ready for such a truth? Enoch also describes the final battle. He says all the nations of the earth will gather. They will march to war against one another. This will not be a war for territory, not for resources. This will be a war for souls. Look at the modern world. Information wars, propaganda, fake news. Each side claims it is right. Each side claims it defends the good. Each side declares the other is evil. But the book of Enoch says both are wrong. For the true war is not between nations. It is between light and darkness. And darkness does not dwell in one country. It is everywhere, in every government, in every church, in every heart that chooses power over love. Enoch sees how this war ends. He says fire will descend from the heavens. It will consume all who serve the darkness. But those who remained faithful to the light will survive. They will build a new kingdom, a kingdom of justice. But who are these people? Enoch gives a clue. He says they will not be rich nor poor, not mighty nor weak. They will be simple, honest, willing to give everything for the sake of truth. How many such people are there today? Are you one of them? The book of Enoch also contains a calendar of the end. It says the last days will last 7 years. The first 3 years will be difficult, but bearable. The next 3 years will become unbearable, and the final year will be so terrifying that people will pray for death. This echoes the revelation of John, which also speaks of 7 years of great tribulation, of the beast who will reign for 3.5 years. But the book of Enoch adds details. It says, in the final year the heavens will be torn apart, and through that torn veil people will see the truth. They will see angels, demons, the Watchers, all who had been hidden from them. And then everyone will make a choice to serve the light or the darkness. There will no longer be a chance to hide, no longer any way to remain neutral. The church never wanted people to know this. Why? Because if the choice is this simple, then why the church? Why endless doctrines, theologies, rituals? The book of Enoch declares none of that matters. What matters is one honest choice, light or darkness, truth or lies, love or fear. And this choice each person makes alone, without a priest, without a church, without intermediaries. There is yet another frightening passage. Enoch describes the place where all sinners will be gathered before judgment. He says it is not hell. It is a valley on earth. It is called Hinnom, and there will be a fire that never goes out, and a worm that does not die. Christ himself spoke of this place. He called it Gehenna. He said, it is better to cut off your hand than to be thrown there with your whole body. But here is what is remarkable. This valley exists in reality. It lies near Jerusalem. In ancient times it was used to burn garbage and the bodies of criminals. The fire there burned without end. Worms devoured what the flames did not consume. Why did Christ use this place as a symbol of hell? Because in the last days, Gehenna will again become the place of judgment. Not symbolic, real. There all kings, prophets, and priests who served lies will be gathered, and there they will face their punishment. The book of Enoch declares this will happen in the sight of all, so that everyone will know justice exists. Evil does not remain unpunished, not even if it wore a crown or a priestly robe. There exists a text the church hated more than all the others. It is the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, found in Egypt in the year 1989. It tells a story the church tried to erase from memory. Mary Magdalene was not just a follower of Christ. She was his closest disciple. The Gospel says, Christ loved her more than the other apostles. He revealed to her secrets. He revealed to no one else. Peter was jealous of her. He asked Christ, Why do you speak with a woman more than with us? And Christ answered, Because she understands. After the crucifixion, Mary saw visions. She spoke with Christ. She knew what was to come. But the apostles did not believe her. Peter said, How can we listen to a woman? The church built its power on Peter. It said, Peter was the first pope. He held the keys to the kingdom. But the Gospel of Mary says something different. It says Christ entrusted his secrets not to Peter, but to Mary. That is why the church destroyed this text. That is why it turned Mary Magdalene into a prostitute. That is why women were barred from power in the church. Because if Mary was equal to the apostles, then the entire hierarchy of the church was a lie. The Gospel of Mary also contains prophecy. Mary says before the end, women will rise. They will speak truth men tried to hide. They will lead where men destroyed. And then the world will change. Look at today. Women leaders across the globe. Women guiding nations, corporations, movements. The church still refuses to acknowledge them. But the world is changing without the church. Mary also speaks about the nature of evil. She says evil is not in matter. Evil is in ignorance. People do not sin because they are wicked. They sin because they do not know. This is revolutionary. The church says, you are sinners from birth. You need salvation. But Mary says you are not sinners. You are simply unaware. Know yourself and you will become holy. Why did the church hide this? Because if sin is ignorance, then salvation is knowledge. Not the church, not ritual, not confession, just knowledge. And the modern world is built on ignorance. People do not know what they eat. They do not know what they drink. They do not know what they believe. They consume what they are given and call it life. Mary says this is not life. It is a dream. Wake up. No. And then you will see that the world is an illusion and the truth is within you. In the Gospel of Mary, there is a vision she describes of the end. She says, I saw a woman giving birth in fire. Her child was a new kingdom. But before the birth, there was pain so great that many could not endure it. This is about us, about the generation giving birth to a new world. The pain we feel now, wars, crises, disasters, is not the end. It is the beginning of birth, but many do not see this. They see only pain. They believe everything is ending. But Mary says no. Everything is just beginning. Are you ready to endure this pain for the sake of a new world? Mary also speaks of the role of women in the last days. She says women will be the ones who hold the light. When men go to war, women will preserve life. When men destroy, women will build. This does not mean that all men are evil and all women are good. It means that feminine energy, the energy of creation, of care, of love, will be essential for survival. The modern world is built on masculine energy, the energy of conquest, of control, of domination. And this energy has pushed the world to the edge. Mary says, to survive, the world must return to balance. The masculine and the feminine, strength and love, mind and heart. And that balance will begin when women take their true place, not beneath men, not above them, but beside them. As equals, there is yet another vital passage. Mary describes how Christ showed her the path after death. She says the soul passes through 7 levels. At each level, demons try to stop it. They say, you belong to us. You are sinful. You cannot go further. But the soul replies, I have known myself. I know who I am. And no one can stop me. And the demons fall back. This is the key to salvation. Not prayer, not ritual, but self-knowledge. When you truly know who you are, no evil can hold you. The church did not want people to know this. Because if salvation is this simple, then what need is there for the church? There is a text that describes the relationship between Christ and Mary in a way the church could never accept. It is the Gospel of Philip. Discovered at Nag Hammadi, it contains a passage that says, Christ loved Mary more than all the disciples. He kissed her often on the lips. The church says this is a metaphor. The kiss is only a symbol of spiritual union. But the text speaks differently. It says the apostles were jealous. They asked, why do you love her more than us? If Christ was married, it destroys the entire doctrine of the church. For the church preaches celibacy. It says holiness means denying the body. But if Christ had a wife, then the body is not sinful, it is sacred. The Gospel of Philip goes further. It says, marriage is a sacrament, but not only between man and woman. It is a union between soul and spirit. Between humanity and God, Christ and Mary are the symbol of this union. The church hid this. Why? Because if marriage is sacred, then a priest cannot be holier than an ordinary person. If Christ loved a woman, then a man who loves is closer to God than a monk. This is terrifying for the church. For its power rests on the claim that the priest is the mediator between man and God. But the Gospel of Philip declares, mediators are not needed. Love itself is the direct path to God, and the modern world is rediscovering this truth. People are leaving the church, but they are not leaving God. They search for him elsewhere, in nature, in art, in love. The church calls this sin, but they are only reading what Christ truly said. The Gospel of Philip also contains prophecies of the last days. It says, before the end, marriage will become rare. People will live together, but never unite. They will bring forth children, but never build families. Look around. The number of marriages is collapsing. People live together for years but never marry. Why? Because they no longer believe in the holiness of marriage. They see it only as a contract, not as a sacrament. The Gospel of Philip says this is a sign of the end. For when people lose faith in union, they lose faith in life. And when life loses its meaning, death comes, but there is hope. The gospel says those who preserve the holiness of marriage will preserve the holiness of life. They will be the seed of the new world. Are you one of them? There is another passage the church especially despised. Philip describes the sacrament of anointing. He says, "It is not merely a ritual. It is physical union. Oil on the skin is the symbol of the Spirit entering the body." And then he says something even more shocking. The greatest sacrament is the union of man and woman. For in that moment they become one. And in that oneness, God is present. The church could not accept this. For if sex is sacred, then celibacy is meaningless. If God is present in love, then a married couple is no less holy than a monk. That is why the church turned sex into sin. It said, the body is temptation. Desire is a fall. The only holy path is denial. But the Gospel of Philip says otherwise. It says the body was created by God. Desire was given by God, and love between man and woman is a reflection of God's love for creation. This is revolutionary. It restores holiness to the body. It makes the ordinary person equal to the priest. It declares, you do not need the church to find God. You need only love. Philip also describes a vision of the end. He says, there will come a time when what was divided will be united. Male and female, light and darkness, heaven and earth, and then a new creation will be born. This is not an apocalypse. It is a transformation. The old world built on separation must fall, and a new world built on unity must rise. And this new world will not begin in temples. It will begin in the hearts of those who love. There is another text the church chose to hide. It is called the Ascension of Isaiah. It describes the path of the soul after death. And this path is nothing like what the church teaches. Isaiah sees a vision. An angel shows him 7 heavens. Each heaven is a level of consciousness. In the first heaven dwell the souls who have only begun to know themselves. In the 7th dwell those who have become one with God. But here is what is terrifying. Between the heavens stand guardians, demons who do not allow souls to pass. They ask, what is your name? Who sent you? What do you know? And if the soul cannot answer, they send it back to earth, into a new body, into a new life. This is reincarnation. The church does not recognize it. It says, one life, one judgment, one chance. But the Ascension of Isaiah says otherwise. It says, the soul returns again and again until it learns. Why did the church hide this? Because if there are many lives, there is no urgency, no fear of hell. You can always try again, but the Ascension of Isaiah adds a grave detail. It says there is a final generation. For them there will be no second chance. If they do not know themselves in this life, they will perish with the old world. And that final generation is us. Do you feel it? Do you sense that this is the last chance? Isaiah also describes what will happen before the end. He says the heavens will open. People will see angels and demons. They will see the true nature of reality. And most will not endure it, for the truth is too terrifying. The world we see is an illusion. Behind it lies something far greater and far darker, but those who are ready will see more than fear. They will see beauty. They will see that everything had meaning. that every suffering was a lesson, that every war was part of a plan, not God's plan. For God does not plan wars, but a cosmic plan. For the universe evolves through conflict, and humanity is part of this evolution. The ascension of Isaiah also describes the final battle differently. It says, "It is not a battle on earth. It is a battle in the seventh heaven between the forces of light and the forces of darkness. And the outcome of this battle depends on us, on how many souls rise to the seventh heaven, on how many people truly know themselves, on how many choose light over darkness. If the majority choose the light, darkness will fall. If the majority remain in ignorance, darkness is won. That is why every choice matters, every thought, every action. For you are not simply living your life, you are part of a cosmic battle. Are you ready for such responsibility? There is another terrifying passage. Isaiah describes what he saw in the fourth heaven. There he saw a book. In it were written the names of those who will be saved. And he saw that there were very few names. The angel said to him, "Most people will never awaken. They will live their lives in a dream. And when the end comes, they will vanish as if they had never been. This is worse than hell. For hell is still existence. But this is total erasure, annihilation. The church does not speak of this. It says heaven or hell. But the ascension of Isaiah says there is a third outcome, non-existence for those who were never truly alive. Are you real? Are you living your life? Or are you only following the program written for you? These are not rhetorical questions. Your answers determine your eternal existence. This is the last text we must speak about, the gospel of truth. It was discovered at Nag Hammadi, and it does not tell a story, it reveals the essence. The gospel of truth says the world was created by mistake, not by God. God never created the material world. It was created by the demiurge, a false god, one who believed himself to be the only one, but who in truth was only an embryo of the true God. The church calls this the greatest heresy. For if the world was not made by God, then the entire Bible is a lie. If the demiurge is a false creator, then Yahweh of the Old Testament is not the true God. But the gospel of truth goes further. It says Christ did not come to save the world. He came to show the way out of it. He came to say, you are not from here. Your true home is in the pleroma, in fullness. In the real God, this is Gnosticism, the teaching the church tried to erase completely. Because if people believe the world is a mistake, they will stop building it. They will stop obeying authority. They will desire only one thing to escape. But the gospel of truth makes something clear. Escape is not suicide. It is knowledge. When you truly know yourself, the world of matter loses its grip on you. You still live in it, but it no longer holds you. You become free. Isn't that what you have always wanted? Freedom true, not illusory? The gospel of truth also describes what will happen at the end. It says the material world will dissolve like a dream upon waking. All who are bound to it will dissolve with it. But those who have known their true nature will return to the pleroma. This is not a reward. It is simply a return home. You were always from there. You had only forgotten. The church could never allow people to know this. For if life is only a dream, then why the church? Why rules, laws, commandments? The gospel of truth says they exist only for those who are still asleep. For those who are awake, they no longer matter. Our modern world is built on control. Governments rule through laws. Corporations rule through money. Churches rule through fear. But the gospel of truth says all this control is an illusion. It works only as long as you believe in it. When you awaken, it vanishes. Do not forget to leave a comment and share what you feel hearing these words. Do they change your understanding of reality? There is one last passage the church feared most. The gospel of truth describes the demiurge. It says he is not evil, only ignorant. He created the world, thinking it was good. He set laws, believing they were just, but he did not know there was something higher above him. And when the end comes, the demiurge himself will know the truth. He will see the true God, and he will understand his mistake, and his creation will collapse. This is not catastrophe. It is liberation. For all, even for the demiurge. Are you ready for that liberation? Are you ready to release everything you thought was real? The gospel of truth says, most are not ready. They will cling to the world until their last breath. They will defend their illusions, their fears, their attachments. And when the world dissolves, they will dissolve with it. But there are those who are ready. Those who always felt something was wrong with this world. Those who always knew there was something more. These people will not fear the end. They will welcome it with joy. For to them, it is not an end. It is a return. The gospel also reveals the secret of time. It says time is the weapon of the demiurge. He uses time to keep souls trapped. For as long as you believe in past and future, you cannot live in the present. And only in the present can you know the truth. Think about your own life. How much time do you spend dwelling on the past, on what you did wrong, on what you lost? How much time do you spend worrying about the future, about money, health, safety? The gospel of truth says, all of this is a trap. The past is gone. The future is not here yet. There is only now. And in this now you are free. But the demiurge does not want you to know this. That is why he created calendars, clocks, scheduled lives. That is why he forces you to live by deadlines. For as long as you live in time, you cannot escape. Our modern world is obsessed with time. We count minutes, hours, days. We plan years ahead. We live by schedules, and we never stop to ask, why? The gospel of truth gives the answer so that you do not awaken. Because when you awaken, time stops, and then you see that everything is illusion. The final passage of the gospel describes the moment of awakening. It says it is like a flash of light, sudden, unexpected. One moment you are asleep, the next you are awake, and you will never be the same. Some call it enlightenment. Others call it resurrection. But the gospel of truth calls it by a simple word, memory. You simply remember who you truly are. And when you remember, the world loses its power over you. The church destroyed this gospel for centuries. It burned copies. It killed those who read it. Why? Because if people awaken, the church loses all its power. If people remember who they truly are, they no longer need mediators. But the text survived, like all the other forbidden gospels. For truth always survives. It can be hidden, forgotten, distorted, but it always returns. and now it returns again, through these texts, through these words, through you, if you are ready to hear them. We have walked through the forbidden texts, through the Gospels the Church tried to erase from history, through prophecies that foretold our time. Now, the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Most will do nothing. They will listen, nod, and return to their lives, to their jobs, their entertainments, their illusions, because truth is frightening. It is easier to live in lies, but some will not be able to forget. These words will remain in them. They will begin to question, to search, to investigate, and then their lives will change forever, because once you know the truth, you cannot unknow it. Once you awaken, you cannot fall asleep again. The forbidden Gospels speak of one thing: the end is near. Not because God decided it, but because the world has reached its limit. Lies cannot last forever. Systems built on injustice always collapse. Empires built on blood always fall, and our civilization will be no exception. We live in the last days of the old world. The signs are everywhere: wars, disasters, division, chaos. But this is not only destruction, it is also birth, because something new is trying to emerge. And that new world depends on us, on which truth we choose. The truth of the Church, which says, obey and wait for salvation, or the truth of the Apocrypha, which says, know yourself and be free. The first path leads to slavery, the second to freedom, but the second is also dangerous, because freedom means responsibility. It means you can no longer blame others. You can no longer hide behind rules. You become the creator of your own life. And that is the most terrifying thing for someone used to being a slave. The forbidden Gospels were hidden for a reason. They were hidden by those who knew this knowledge could change the world. It could topple empires. It could set millions free. That is why they were destroyed. That is why they were banned. That is why you were never told about them in church. But now, you know, now you have a choice. You can close this video and forget everything you heard. Or you can go deeper. Read these texts for yourself. Seek answers. Know yourself. Which path will you choose? Remember, these Gospels speak of the end. But the end is not always catastrophe. Sometimes the end is liberation, the end of suffering, the end of lies, the end of slavery. And the beginning of something new, something real, something we can only dream of. The book of Enoch says, 70 generations. We are the last. The Apocalypse of Peter says, hell on earth before the new kingdom. We are in it now. The Gospel of Thomas says, the kingdom is within you. It has always been there. The Gospel of Mary says, women will rise. We see it today. The Gospel of Philip says, holiness is in love, not in denying it. The Gospel of Truth says the world is an illusion. Awaken. All these messages converge into one. The time has come. The time of choice. The time of awakening. The time of transformation. You are not watching this by accident. You were searching for answers, and you have found them. Not all of them, for no one has the full answer, but enough to begin. Now it is your turn. What do you feel after hearing this? Has something changed in your understanding of the world, of faith, of yourself? Leave a comment. Share your thoughts, your fears, your hopes, because this conversation does not end here. It is only beginning. And remember, truth always meets resistance. If these words have touched your soul, someone will try to convince you that you are wrong. The church will say, it is heresy. The skeptics will say, it is fantasy. The authorities will say, it is dangerous. But deep inside you will know, it is truth. Not because I told you, but because your soul recognized what it has always known. The forbidden Gospels do not give easy answers. They do not promise to save you. They say only one thing: save yourself. Know yourself. And then you will be free. The end of the world does not mean death. It means transformation. The old must die so the new can be born. And we must choose to perish with the old or to be born with the new. This choice belongs to each one of us. Here, now, in this moment. What will you choose? Leave your comments below. Tell us what you think about the forbidden Gospels. Do you believe the church hid the truth? Do you see the signs of the end in today's world? Are you ready for what is coming? Your voice matters, because together we shape the future. And that future depends on how many awakened. Subscribe to the channel if you want more of these investigations. Like this video if these words touched your heart. Share it with those who are ready to hear the truth, because truth spreads not by force, but by choice. By each person willing to accept it. Time is running out, not in the literal sense, but in the sense of choice. Soon it will be too late to decide. Soon events will move so fast you will not have time to stop and think. So think now. Choose now. Act now. The forbidden Gospels have waited for 2,000 years to return to us. They waited for this very moment, for this generation, for you. Do not waste this chance. Do not ignore this call, for it may never come again. The truth is now in your hands. What you do with it is only up to you. Thank you for watching to the end. Thank you for having the courage to hear what most are afraid to hear. Thank you for seeking for only those who seek. Find. And remember the final words from the Gospel of Thomas. The one who seeks should not cease seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will be disturbed. When he is disturbed, he will marvel. And he will reign over all. Your reign begins now. With knowledge, with truth, with the choice to be free. See you in the comments. See you in the new world. Since this narration was generated by artificial intelligence, some words or phrases may not sound entirely natural. If you notice any mistakes in pronunciation or intonation, please write about them in the comments. This will help improve the quality of future videos. Thank you for understanding.